Are you ready to learn? Because my super experienced guests are ready to share some really valuable information. Make sure and listen all the way to the end to get help and support. So let's start with the best audio experience.
Hello everyone and welcome to our show. Today we discuss about creating brand awareness. We will cover some specific examples by writing a book so it can help and to grow your business and go ahead. I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Azul Terronez. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I check out your profile. You have extended experience. Love it. So, especially I enjoy discussing topics with book authors because I can feel much better skills. They can share some foundation of human psychology. I know you're a best-selling author, book coach, book brand strategist, and many other rewards. Before we start, just tell more about your self experience, background, and why you decided to share with us about creating brand awareness.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me again. Um, you know, so I spent 25 years as an educator. I was a teacher, I was a principal, I was a professor. So before shifting into entrepreneurship and helping people build their brand through their books, I spent my life there helping people in different ways. Really, things shifted for me when I wrote my first book. Writing a book builds such an incredible authority that it's more powerful than a degree, more powerful than certifications you might get, because everyone, even a child, knows what a book is. And books
Yeah.
have been around for thousands of years. And, popular ideas that happen in books are something we're very familiar with. So building a brand with a book was something that I was really excited about and allowed me to grow quickly and become known by people that I used to only listen to on their podcasts or
Mhm.
just connect with them, casually. But to be able to be in their world, in their circle, and leap into their kind of world, being an author allowed me to do that. So building your brand around what messages you're creating is really useful. A lot of times we're building a brand around what we know. You might know a lot
Yeah.
about SEO, you might know marketing, you might know things about legal parameters of business, whatever it is. But what makes you an authority often is what you write about, what you're known for.
Yeah.
And a book is a great way to do that. You can repurpose that content over and over again. You can talk about it. So the other thing I've done is help lots of big influencers write books. People like Pat Flynn from the Smart Passive Income podcast. I was his book coach, and we worked on a book called Will It Fly? That was a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller, I think. Um, I was able to use my book as leverage to become a TEDx speaker, and that TEDx has 3 million views. So there's lots of things that using a book can do for your brand to accelerate your pace, to be well known. So that's what I do. I help people find their message through their books and use it as leverage to build their brand.
Nice. Love it. Love it. I'm passionate about reading books. I love it. And I had time when I overwatched TV. Then I decided to change all these attitudes. And today I over reading books, not overwatching TV.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I think is the best way for TV set is a trash can, you can put there to displays because books cost less but can provide a lot of skills and knowledge. I found one interesting thing. Book offers usually good with sharing stories. Can you tell your method how to share story and provide more information about your books benefits? Because I know my audience loves reading books as well, but most of them complain they have no time to read books. So we have a bunch of books, a lot of books. Some of them are great for sleep, when you have the problem with sleeping, so you can read and sleep well all night and don't remember anything from that. Can you tell about benefits that people can get by reading your books, how it can help to decide people's problems, to lead them in the right direction?
Yeah. Well, let's start first with the first question. How do you tell a story in a book? How do you get a
Yeah.
compelling book to hook us in and keep us reading, keep us remembering the topic? Remember, we were built as humans, collectively as a species, to pass down our knowledge through stories. So it was only a few hundred years ago that we were actually able to have the printing press, when Gutenberg really advanced the printing of books so that every person could have access to books in libraries. But before then, only the elite, only very wealthy or people of the clergy had access to books. So the common people didn't know much about anything unless it was passed down through stories. So stories are a part of our DNA as humans. It's how we survived when we knew what plants we should eat and not eat, where we should go find water, the best hunting areas. Those all came from stories that were passed down from one generation to the next. So we're built to understand story. So number one, the books that you remember most, you probably remember a story that was told or a
Yeah.
connection that was made. Very important inside of a book that you use story as a way to hook people to remember your topic. You probably all have books you purchased that you put by your nightstand at night, maybe even read some, but never finished. You had good intentions, you liked the topic, but you didn't finish the book. Oftentimes, that comes from the fact that people try to become teachers too quickly in a book. We need to trust you. We need to know you. We need to connect with you. Then I might learn from you. Too many people want to jump in a book and try to teach people stuff. I'm not sure I'm ready to learn from you unless I know I know you. I can rely on you. So stories are a great way. Your stories, the stories of others. So I encourage people to become better storytellers in general.
Mhm.
And what you can learn from books is phenomenal. Me, like you said, you can learn from ancient philosophers. You can learn from uh, professors from universities. You can learn from advanced marketers about topics that you can consume by just picking up a book. So it's very valuable, and it helps build brand awareness because if they believe in you, they're going to go look at your website. They're going to look at your social and see what else does this person have to offer. So your book is an entryway, a very inexpensive entryway for people to get to know you so that they want to know more.
Yeah, love it, love it. Okay, and let's talk about your books. Can you tell what kind of benefits people can get by reading your books? Just give a solid reason why I need to submit this book to my list because I have a huge list, a huge list, but I definitely want to get a solid reason, to put this book on my list or all your
Yeah.
books.
One of the books that I think that was the most impactful for me was The Art of Apprenticeship. The reason that book was so such a passion project for me was because I wanted to leave education, but I didn't know how. It was 2000, probably 12 when I started thinking about leaving education. Things like YouTube and Instagram were still fairly new, which is kind of sounds weird, even though they were kind of up and coming, they were still new. So leaping into anything online seemed very scary at the time for me. I know it seems silly now, but the book Art of Apprenticeship, the idea was, how do I make a leap to do what I love online, find a mentor, and make a living doing what I love? And what I realized is the art of apprenticeship was in the old ways, let's say, a few hundred years ago, if I wanted to learn a skill, I probably didn't go to a university. I would go to a trade school, or I would go to a master craftsman or craftsperson, and maybe a blacksmith or a sword maker, whatever. And I would become their apprentice. And what that really meant was you'd go serve people. Look, hey, I made a mess. You clean it up. You deliver this product. You stay late and greet customers. You prepare the fire. That's what an apprentice did. They got to learn the craft by watching the master. They got to learn the craft by maybe picking up a scrap here and there and practicing. And then maybe we're given the chance to try a very low level thing. And over time, you became an apprentice to journeyman and then the master, right? This is a very old way of doing things, but I thought it was very applicable. So I went in search of who do I want to be an apprentice of so that I can learn from them, so I could be in the world. Of course, I thought about Tim Ferriss. I was like, ooh, wouldn't that be great? I thought about Pat Flynn, my current mentor. I thought about people I admired, Chris Gillibo, um, those sorts of people. And I realized I could read their books, I could listen to their podcasts, but if I really wanted to learn from them, I had to be of service. So that's what that book's about. How do you pick a mentor, someone you really admire, to get them to mentor you? It isn't through asking them or anything like that. It's about service. So that book really helped me because that's how I built my mentorships around these wonderful people. How I got to be in very short period of time, become amongst the peers of people I used to just admire. because I became of service. So that's what that book's about. It's a short book, but it's really very simple premise. And I think if people stop trying to take from people and start giving, they'll find their ability to have access to very high level people can happen very quickly.
Nice, nice. Guys, I'll submit the link in the description below. I'm going to read this book because, yeah, I want to know more about that. I'm passionate about this topic as well. Let's talk about, writing a book for the sake of growth business, to create brand awareness. For example, when I read some books from, I don't know, like Jack London, yeah, I can't stop reading him. Any book, if I take his books, I can read like 8 hours without any stop. Without, I can forget about water, about eating, about anything because I can live in this story. Yeah, they are great. But about business books, it's hard. For me, it's hard. To have the same attention. I know it's valuable, it's useful, so I keep reading them, but it's not the same experience like reading adventure books from Jack London. Can you tell how to retain readers longer? Because I check out one study that people usually read on the average like 5% of books, 5% and drop it, bounce and go to another direction. It's hard to retain them longer. Can you tell how to read excitement books? Let me share one more story. Once I spoke with Jim Edwards. He was ex-top manager of Business Insider, and they told about the success why Business Insider could achieve because of creating non-boring content in boring niche. So after that, they could grow company from scratch to, if I remember correctly, they sold company like $500 million, 1,000 employees. Yeah, they achieved a lot of success because of writing non-boring text. So can you tell about business books, how I can write the same text to retain audience, to give them experience, and to catch them until the end?
Right. Great questions. Two things. Number one, some of those books that you reference, those business books that probably are very helpful as far as what they share, but aren't as interesting, is mass market books, meaning books that are for a larger audience. They tend to write it for a big spectrum of people, business people, ordinary people, entrepreneurs, but they make it so that it covers all those people. Well, I don't need to be proven with a bunch of links and research to believe something, because I'm not going to go validate that research. We're just trained from school that we need to research things. Doesn't mean research isn't valuable, but I'm less interested on what the research says. I'm more interested in what you say. I bought the book to hear from you. Stories that are compelling and interesting keep us turning the page. One of the best business authors, I think, that does this is Malcolm Gladwell. He does a beautiful job of taking boring research and turning it into beautiful stories that you want to keep reading. The key to it is the book is not about what you know. The book is about convincing the reader. Why does this matter? And what is this you're talking about? I need very little how-to. If I need to know, if I want to do how-to, there's 40 different ways to learn how to do something quicker than this book. I could go to YouTube. I could listen to podcasts. But if I believe I can do it or that it's possible for me, I might actually keep reading. So finding books that have enough interest for you, probably need books that have story for you, story that engages the reader, story so you don't want to put it down. It's a technique, right? If I leave you hanging on the end of a chapter and says, next chapter, I'm going to show you how I did make that $10,000 in a single hour. Well, of course, I'm going to turn the page because I want to know, how did you make that $10,000 in a single hour? But most people miss very simple techniques. Those are from fiction, cliffhangers. What's happening next? Tune in next week when, right? That's why we binge watch Netflix, because they leave us hanging. Oh, the next one. Well, you can do that with your writing about business, but use stories as a motivator. Use your own life or the life of people you've helped to keep us interested and blown away and excited. And don't tell us more than we need to have. Like, why do I want to read about something that's something I don't need? The reason you like fiction is it keeps you in the story the whole time, and you just can't time disappears. And
Mhm.
some other ways that people do that, they listen to audiobooks because their attention's smaller, their attention. And so they listen to audiobooks. Sometimes I'll listen to audiobook because it's really fun. I can speed read, so it helps, but audiobooks are sometimes just entertaining if the author does a good job of telling good stories.
Yeah, interesting. By the way, I love listening to audiobooks. I love reading books because in most cases, I listen to audiobooks when I'm walking with my dogs, exercising,
Yeah.
driving to some places. Yeah,
Right.
that's good way, to save your time by reading, by learning something new. Uh, and you mentioned about, about like simplicity. Can you tell how to write books without using, I don't know, like hard written sentences, terminology, and many other stuff? Because, uh, if, for example, I see the same issue in online content. When you create content, people, if it's hard, they bounce, without any regret. They can do it for a few seconds, and
Yeah.
forget about your content. So simplicity is key. But when it's simple, when it's digestible, they can go ahead with your content to consume it. Can you tell about simplicity in writing books?
Yeah. I think most people aren't aware that most really successful books and publications are written at a very low grade level. For example, the writer John Grisham, he writes a lot of books like The Firm and books like that. They're fiction. He writes his books at a 6th grade level. The story, the content is adult in nature, but the reading level is very low. The New York Times never written above an 8th grade level, even the most complicated articles. They do that intentionally. Why? They don't want people to be discouraged and put it down. They want you to read the content so you read the ads so they can stay in business. So they never put it higher. Usually it's like 6th or 7th grade, but never higher than 8th grade. Most people are just not thinking about the reader. They're thinking about themselves. Simple writing comes from just explaining what do you mean. This isn't poetry or literature that's trying to win a prize in the best sculpted English language sentence or whatever language you're writing in. They need to know the information you're sharing. Make it easy. Don't make them struggle with a word.
Yeah.
Don't I know you don't want to sound like an idiot. You don't want to sound stupid, but there's no reason. If you can't explain the idea to a 5th grader, it's probably too complex.
Mhm.
It has to be simple. Simplicity is the hardest thing to do, though, because if you're writing, you're probably an expert. You probably have a lot of knowledge, and you probably have very little patience for someone's lack of knowledge, but you have to return to that simple place and go, if I were going to explain this to a 5th grader, what would I say? And more than likely, the person who gets it will read right through it. But the person who needs a little extra time to understand, they're going to appreciate you and thank you. And stay on your page, stay in your book, turn the page. So stop trying to prove yourself. This isn't high school. This isn't college. You don't need to prove to the professor you have big words in your mind. Just tell them what they need to know.
Yeah, awesome, valuable. Okay, let's talk about how to learn readers before writing a book. Because in marketing we have interesting quote: "If you sell to anyone, you sell to no one." I think it's the same, with writing book. When you write a book and don't know about your readers, it's hard, to get success with that. Can you tell about how you gather information about your future readers and consider in your books?
Right. 2 things. Number 1, just like in business, create a really clear avatar about who your reader is. Where are they? What's their age? What's their background? How much information do they have about this? What are they struggling with? What fears do they have? If you don't know your reader that well, then you should stop writing and figure them out, because you can't speak to them if you're only casually talking about a topic. If I'm reading a book and they call out something and it feels like they're talking directly to me, I keep reading because I go, oh my gosh, this is for me. So the same principle applies. A book for everyone is a book for no one. So the other thing you have to do is ask yourself, as the author, who am I trying to attract to my world? Just because it's simple and it's not written in complex language doesn't mean you want to attract just anybody. You need to think, who do I want to spend time with? Who are my favorite clients? Not the clients just that bring money, because not some of those clients are a pain in the butt. You want to think about who are the people I want to attract to me. And those kinds of decisions help you write specifically for that person so that when they read it, they go, oh my gosh, this is for me. And when you write, if you're only thinking about writing to one person, make up their name, Johnny, Bill, Susie, then you never have to worry about every conversation you could have. You could just focus on this avatar you created. If Susie's a middle-aged housewife trying to make money selling on Etsy, that's a different conversation than a former CEO trying to create an online presence. Different conversations, you're going to speak to them differently. But doesn't mean that other people won't buy it. They're going to think that you're writing it to them too. It's your author tone and voice that will come out. You ever read a newsletter that sounds like generic in your email? Or it sounds like the marketer's talking. You're like, oh, God, this is just, and then you read an email from somebody, it just feels like they're talking to you, like letting you peek into their private life. You feel like you get to know them. That's the same thing you want from a book. You want to feel like you're getting to know the person who's teaching you. And that is a really great way to create connection. This book writing is not about words. Books aren't words. They're ideas that are held by words. Your ideas are more valuable than your words. So stick by your ideas. What's the main idea? What's the point? Why are you teaching this? When you have that in mind, you'll be able to speak to that avatar and they'll feel like you get them totally. And that's the thing. You have to be clear about who you're talking to.
Nice. Love it. Okay, let's talk about, once I got the question from someone who listens my audio podcast, and he asked me, if I listen all your episodes, can I be a good marketer? I replied to him, you can't, because, education, learning are far away from doing. Just do something, just practice. And for me, like, I love learning, but I spend 20% of my time by learning, and 80% of time I'm doing, I'm acting, because you can read 100 books how to write a book, but if you don't write, you can't be successful with that. So let's talk about writing, how to improve writing skills, how to act, because many people are busy with many things to do, especially about in business world when we need to develop, innovate our products. Can you tell how you schedule your time by writing, how long you usually do it? Of course it depends, but do you have some discipline or a schedule how to improve writing skills, and provide any tips about that?
Yeah. Great questions. So true. You can learn a little bit from a book. You learn a lot more from doing, because doing is where you fail and that's where you learn. And that's the thing that you need. I don't teach people how to write. Writing is not a difficult task. It's putting one word in front of the other. I teach people how to craft a message that helps amplify their brand. And a lot of that comes from the discipline you need to write. So most people, when they think of writing a book, they think of it's hard. It takes a long time. You see a book, you're like, I don't know how I'd fill a book with my words. That seems like I haven't written a paper since high school. Why would I write emails, I write blogs, but books seem like a long process. Well, that's true. But most people, what they call writing, just like what they call marketing, is them thinking about it, researching, reading. That's not writing. Those are other things.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake is that people count the activities that aren't writing as writing. And so that's why it feels like it's hard. Well, I've been writing this book for 3 months. You have? How much do you have? 40 words. Well, you're not writing a book. You are researching, editing. You're doing other things. We're trained in our schooling to be editors. Why? Because I want to pass the class. Tell me what I need to do to edit this paper to get the grade. So we spend all of our time editing to a outcome. We don't know how to just sit and write. We don't know how that process even feels. Most of us hated writing papers for school, and we avoided it to the night before. We did the very best we could, but we delayed it. That's a habit we've developed over the time because schools made us hate writing. That's my impression. If you're good at English, you still may not love writing. Doesn't mean just because you're good at a language skill means you love writing. So my habit, what do? Well, I only write an hour a day. And I write it. Sometimes I'll write a book in a month. And people are like, how did you do it? You only spend an hour a day? And I said, that's right. I said, because you think that writing is hard and that you should be doing lots of things. Writing is just one word after the other. And I set a word count goal and I say, well, I want to write a book that's 50,000 words, which is the average length of a book. Then I say, well, how many words do I need to write in a day to hit that? Well, 1,680 words. How long does it take me to write that? Well, I write 28 words in a minute. Then if I did that for 60 minutes, at the end of 30 days, I will have finished my book. That's how I do it. It's not that complicated. The resistance, though, the fear, that's what most people associate with writing. A lot of my job as a coach is helping them get rid of the fear, or at least to realize the fear is the fuel. It's not the thing that they need to worry about. So my habits are very simple. I write an hour a day. I might write my 1,500 words in the first hour, and I might have to come back and finish. But I don't sit in a cabin. I don't have time to lock myself away on an island. I have work to do. I have a life to live. And I write books. Since, 11 months ago, I've written 3 books. How is it possible? Because I use the craft of discipline, and I also don't get caught up in researching. You've met all these young entrepreneurs. They want to be entrepreneurs. And what have they done? They've done nothing. They've been thinking about it. And that's the problem with writers too. They just think too much.
Yeah, love it. Once I check out a study that 90% of people can't lose weight. And I see the same issue with any other niches. And I think the best coaches can't help people to lose weight. They need to understand how to lose weight, like to train hard, to eat healthy food, to rest, many other stuff. It's the same with writing books. For example, I often speak with masters and ask them why you didn't create this content. He replied to me, I didn't have time. My son birthday, other party. It's not about birthday party. It's more about some excuses why they can't do it, or distractions that they have. Can you tell how you overcome such obstacles? Because you told that you don't lock you in some island. Tell about finding the time when distractions don't disturb you and you can do or focus attention in your job.
Yeah. Part of it is people, like I said, they think that writing is other things. I only count my writing as words on a page. I don't use thinking. If I need to think, that's not writing. So if I need to plan my book, that's not writing. It's only the times where I'm putting one word after the other. So I have to be really clear. There's different activities. Pre-writing, planning, that's not writing, but that's still important. So break in the activities into smaller pieces so you're not overwhelmed. Secondly, for example, that first book, Art of Apprenticeship, I was distracted by the computer and shiny objects just like everyone else. So I wrote that book by hand on a pad, because every time I sat at the computer, I thought, I should look this up. What's on Facebook? Let me check the score of the game. Like, total distraction. So some people will disconnect their internet from their computer. Some people, I wrote that book on, a pad of paper and then went and translated it later onto the page. But I think more than anything, create a habit that triggers your mind to say, this is writing time. This is nothing else. For me, every other screen's turned off. There's only the blank page. I listen to the same music. I know it sounds boring, but I listen to Mozart. Mozart's has a certain cadence that is proven to have the same rhythm as your heart at a very steady pace. So I listen to Mozart. It triggers my mind that this is writing. Not that I wouldn't listen to Mozart while cooking, but I usually don't. So it triggers my brain, it fools my brain. Oh, this is intense writing time. There's nothing else going on now. And when I turn it off, my brain is free to roam all over the place. But during that time, focus only on that. And also then your environment. For some people, it's the same environment every day. For other people, it's a different environment every day. So you got to know yourself well enough to know, did I do the work I said I'd do in this hour? And also don't think that your writing takes time. The great author, Gay Hendricks, talked about this in his book called The Big Leap. He says there's something called Einstein time. He goes, most people think that time is against them. They don't understand that they create time. They create time. And once you realize you create time, you'll never run out of it, which is a mind-blowing concept. Think about it, though. You know how you've been in a place when you were in flow, Like you just lost time. You're like, I don't know if it's been 5 minutes or 5 hours. I was in my thing. I was in my zone. Some people it's video games. Some people it's reading. Some people it's doing sports. It doesn't matter. Well, that time that passed in an instance, you're like, well, how did that happen? Well, because you were in control of time. The same thing can happen when you're working. You have to realize the more I get anxious about not having time, the more I give up time. So you have to just use the tools that you have. Your mind is very powerful, but don't let it trick you. You have to take control of it. And so I think for me, I show my clients how they can write a book if they had just 8 minutes a day. In 6 months, you can write a book. But most people think, oh, I don't have the time. I was like, do you have 8 minutes? Yeah. I said, you have time. I said, you just believe you don't. You just believe that it's hard. You have all these beliefs that you have to let go of. And you're very distracted. So if you're distracted 8 minutes, I could stand on my head if you paid me for 8 minutes. Yeah, I could stand on my head for 8 minutes. It might be hard, but I could do it. But writing, of course I can write for 8 minutes. Like I'll set a timer and I write. I don't think, I don't research, I don't chat, I don't email. Right. You'll be surprised how much you get done. Set a timer for 2 minutes, write as fast as you can, and then count your words and then figure out how many words can I write in a minute. Multiply that by 60. You'll find how much you can write in an hour. You'll be blown away by how many words you can write and how little time you've actually ever been writing. You've just been thinking instead of writing. So don't think in your head, think on the page, and you'll become a writer very quickly.
You remind me Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he replied. The question was actually about why he still goes to gym in his age, and he replied, "Okay, why you are breathing? Why you are cleaning your teeth? It's habit, So yeah, you need to create a habit. It's discipline. Yeah. If you have this habit, it's like your discipline. You can go ahead with that.
Yeah, and if you have a shorter attention span or shorter ability of time, 8 minutes is still enough time to write a book in 6 months. So nobody has an excuse of time. I promise you, I didn't have any more time than anybody else. What I had was a plan and a simple system. And I was the person that's for 24 years talked about writing a book. I had articles saved, I had titles, I had partially started books, but I finished none of them until I got a plan. And then I wrote that first book, Art of Apprenticeship, in 30 days. Because I finally realized I've been just thinking about a book, talking about it. I'm not really writing. That's the problem. And once I did that, I was like, oh, so I've been fooling myself all this time thinking I was writing a book when I was just sort of doing other things. And I think once I shifted that, that's when everything changed for me. And I'm not saying some books are hard, because I've had one book I worked on for 4 years and it's still not done. Part of it is I'm so distracted by other things, like you said, but it's not a book for my business. And so it's easy for me to put it on the side. But it's not the words that are a problem. It's not the number of words on a page. It's my distractibility or my fear or whatever it is that has nothing to do with writing. And that's true about business. The reason you're not making successful in business probably has less to do with the fact that you don't have something to offer. It's that you're afraid that what you offer isn't good enough. And so you don't do it.
So valuable. Let me share one more story about my son. He's 12 years old and he posted content on TikTok and stopped. I asked him what's going on. He replied to me, because of hating, he got a lot of hating comments. He's not good enough. I don't know, many something like this. And I read a story from Seth Godin, one of the best marketers, who shared that he stopped reading reviews on Amazon since 2011, so more than 11 years ago, because he can't satisfy anyone. Even the best books have 1-star rating because people don't understand, and you can't write book for everyone. Can you tell about hating? Because I see when hating can stop people to start doing something. They fear that people won't like it, won't accept it. And I see the same issue. I don't remember exactly the number, but it's like most people, most content creators don't record the second episode of podcast, don't write the second article, don't write, don't film the second video because they can't get results from the first one, and people dislike it. Can you tell more about that?
Yeah, I think I would use a couple of examples, but the words of Gary Vee come to mind. You're just not patient enough. Be patient for one. That's the hardest part. The other thing is about haters. I when I did the TED talk and it started to have a lot of views, maybe not a lot, 100,000 views, which maybe that's a lot of views. But as it started to grow in views, people started to hate, saying nasty, negative things. I was so mad. And I talked to my friend Charlie Hohen. And Charlie, not a lot of people know Charlie, but Charlie was Tim Ferriss's first employee. And he was a part of the big book launch of the 4 Hour Body, I think, the 4 Hour Chef, those books. He helped a lot with that. He's been around books and book marketing. And I asked him about haters and about this. He said he learned something valuable for Tim. He said, one, learn from them, engage them, don't shun them, don't push them away. That's one way it could go. And the other thing is do what Seth does. Ignore them. Don't worry about them. Don't care. I got really angry when I saw these posts because it had nothing to do about the topic. It was about me personally, how I spoke, which, if you take it personal that some people might criticize how you speak. And I wrote a really nasty comment. I'm like, that's terrible. You don't know. And then I deleted it. I was like, that's not okay. And then somebody else posted a comment on the haters comment saying, hey, why don't you, when you get a TED Talk, post it here and let us judge you? And I was like, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So it took care of itself. And so, yeah, you have to I like Seth Godin, just ignore it. Don't look. It's not very valuable to you. If they're all good, it just messes with your ego. If they're all bad, it does the same thing. So what's the benefit? There's not a lot of benefit there. So I tend to try not to over obsess by them, but people usually aren't obsessed by them when they happen. They obsess when they're writing the thing. Like, well, I can't do this because what if I get bad reviews? I'm like, that's not in your control. What other people think is none of your business. So let them think what they want. So don't worry about what they think. It's about what you think. So that's really hard, though, because people will stop writing. Like you said, they won't do the next blog post or podcast.
Yeah.
I know I wanted to quit after the first 10 episodes of my podcast. And here I am 5 years later. I don't even look how many downloads I get because honestly, I don't care. I care that people listen. But if I get in my head when everyone's posting their downloads, like, oh, I'm terrible. So I don't even look.
Yeah.
But I get to interview some of the biggest, authors in the world, mainly because I have confidence, because I don't care. If they ask me how many people you have, I go, I don't measure that metrics, but I can promise you it'll be the best interview you had. And here's why. Here's what people have said. They're like, okay. So I don't even worry about those things. That's something I try not to entertain because it just plays with your mind.
Yeah, I love it. I think content creators should enjoy their time. Because if you don't enjoy your time by creating content, that means you can burn out, give up in some time because you can chase some metrics like likes, comments, share, something like this, views. But most content creators, I remember PewDiePie posted 100 videos to got 285 subscribers on his YouTube channel. Right now he has 110 million subscribers. Mr. Beast posted videos a year and a half to get first 1,000 subscribers. So right now he has more than 10 million subscribers because these guys enjoy their time. They don't give up. They just do what they like. And I think it's the same with any content.
Yeah,
I have the final question. Yeah, I have the final question about, let's imagine you started from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills. What will you do today to learn more about writing books?
I think I would have not spent my time worrying that I was doing it wrong. That's the biggest mistake is I thought I have to do it right. Do it the right way. There is no right way. There's no right way to start a business. There's no right way to be successful as an entrepreneur. Every entrepreneur has failure. Every entrepreneur has a success that they didn't expect. Every entrepreneur has a different path. And that's true for writers too. If someone tells you this is how you do it, 99% of the time, they're wrong. I always like when people say, this is how I've done it, because that's a better way to say it. There's no right way to do anything. So I think if I would have told myself, you can't be wrong. How do I know? Because if you write a book, you did it right. There is no wrong. Someone could say this book's better because they believe they like this one better, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. We're just used to being judged, even by teachers. Good grade, bad grade, right? So we are
Mhm.
terrified to be wrong. The only way to become a better writer is to be a bad one first. So stop worrying about being bad. There's no way. I don't care how educated you are. Your first book can never be your best. So don't try to make it but your best. Just make it the best you can for now. And that's the advice I'd give myself. I give to writers. I'm like, the best time to like planting a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is now. So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
waiting doesn't make it better, right? You think, well, I'll just wait and get better, and then I'll write it. When I know more, I'll write it. Right? That's everyone's excuse. I was like, I know no more now about writing books than when I started, except for every time I take a step forward, I learn something new. So that's my advice to myself. That's my advice to the listeners as well.
Yeah, exactly. Love it, love it. Yeah, I think it's better to write a bad book than don't write any book. Because of getting experience. For me, I don't know. It's hard to count how many times I failed, how many times I made mistakes. I keep doing them, so it's part of the life. So just to go ahead, but I can learn from that. So you can write bad book, you can film bad video, you can write bad article, but you can learn how to improve, develop, innovate, and go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
I agree.
Uh, yeah, thank you for your time, for sharing all these valuable insights. Tell our audience how they can reach out to you, learn more about you, follow you.
Yeah. You can learn all about me by going to authorswholead.com. And that's a podcast of the same name if you want to learn from other authors about how they got their book out of them. The podcast is also called Authors Who Lead. And you can follow me on social media. I respond to all the DMs myself, and I love to hear from people. And so, yeah, I look forward to hearing more about what your struggles or challenges are so you can write your book.
Nice, nice. Guys, you can find all these links in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. A big pleasure. Welcome back anytime to share more value. I love it, guys. You need to follow Azul. You need to learn from him. You need to order his services because you can get a lot of valuable insights. Okay, guys. Love you. See you.